And we're back in. So,
Sea nuts.
yes.
Scene. I forgot about that.
Salty sea nuts.
Oh god, I cap locks here. So yeah, you were all looking at all the books. Can I get, I guess, from... Let's start with Kazrin, because you're on your own.
Haha.
You were looking into Phyrexian history. I
Yes.
want you to give me...
History check.
I do want a history check from you. I also want an investigation check from you, because there are a lot of different books on it, and you probably don't... If you're looking more historical books on Phyrexians, rather than, like... There are books detailing some of the weapons and creatures they use, things like that, you know. You probably want to, like, aim for history. So, yeah. But I do want both of those checks, so... Alright.
Hey, that's not bad.
Alright, so, for your little investigation, you actually did find a number of good history books in comparison, like, that seem to detail some of the history related to Phyrexia. And you can pick up some of the basics of it as you read through it. Phyrexia dates back to the ancient empires of Dominaria, actually. One of the original... sorry, I was just trying to get something here so I get the exact date. Before the Brothers' War, in the ancient times... like, it dates back to the Thran Empire. Through discoveries from notes and information from the Tolaria Academy, Yawgmoth was a Thran. He had Thranian. And it was him who was behind Phyrexia becoming what it was. Effectively, their conversion into biomechanical or biological artifice made them effectively immortal. Hence why he lasted as long as he did. Near eternal. The Phyrexians themselves eventually were locked away from Dominaria. It's said that happened with the Great Destruction, the activation of the Golgarian Silex, which the blast sent Dominaria into the Ice Age, and destroyed the portal to Phyrexia that was on Dominaria. After that, after the Ice Age, Phyrexia kept trying to find a way to reinvade it. It wasn't until, of course, they used the artificial plane of Wrath in order to invade Dominaria. This is like information that probably isn't necessarily common, but scholars would kind of know about. This is very basic information.
Do I find anything about the Predator?
Nothing mentioned directly in that book, or any of the books you saw.
Well, we still have another, even more impressive library to visit at the Tolaria Under The Sea, so hopefully we'll learn more there. But this is still useful.
Yes. The rest of you were looking into shadow magic. I need all of you to give me investigation checks. I will roll 2 for your NPCs. Radiant first. And
Oh yes, because I get such a great bonus.
second.
We didn't
I
really
get
roll
ze-
too
I
well.
get +0.
Oh. And you still did better than me.
All right.
Your intelligent party members are off doing their own things.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So you'll study through a lot of the books, and eventually, though, Lutula will come and say, I think this book might be helpful to you.
Ooh.
Most of the books I've been checking out here seem to deal with a type of wraith called shadows. A type of ghost-like undead. That seems to be the primary thing in a lot of these things. They talk about these ghost-like undead. But this one seems to be talking of a people of the shadow. It seems to be writings from someone from the Weatherlight ship. Old collection of notes from one of the crew members.
Interesting.
The book will, of course, talk about a people of the shadows. There seems to be multiple groups of them. It'll kind of describe as you read through it that eventually, when the Weatherlight needed to escape from the plane of Wrath, they needed their own ability to transverse was damaged. The engines, the very powerful engines that allowed them to transverse between realities, to step between planes, was damaged. Originally, it seemed it was aimed to go to places like... you're not sure, because the person didn't really know either. They just knew it was a mysterious thing. They assumed it was to fight the enemies, as to why it was originally installed in there. So the Weatherlight could fight the enemies that the ship was designed to battle with. But since it was damaged, they needed to use a portal that was on Wrath. They got the help of these people that were trapped in the shadows. They knew that if they left Wrath and perhaps returned to another place, they could find salvation and maybe return to a physical realm. The portal was opened, the Weatherlight escaped. They attempted to escape. Whether they did, the Weatherlight crew did not know.
Interesting. Well, this is definitely seems like this could be something. I don't think it was some kind of undead that the creature was.
This is what Joe read, or was this something a party member told us? For the thing
This was what Tula found.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking through the book now.
Okay.
See if there's anything more I can glean.
Mm-hmm. It seems as though the book will describe how a number of the crew were lost. One of them had to stay behind, and that the last note is that the great mage Urza was waiting for them on the other, tried to help them out on the other side, and though he was unable to travel with the ship as it was careened to Mercadia, he took the Soltari with him wherever they went. Lena, the emissary, went with him, because that was apparently the emissary that was there. The notes on the notes were because it's written that it has excerpts from the journal with notes on it. That seems to have maybe been written by the person who originally did it. Or notes were made. The knowledge that Urza was there was actually something that was learned much later in discussions with him. The name Urza, common knowledge would probably know him as the original founder of the Tolaria Academy. A powerful wizard whose magics gave him an incredibly long life, and he founded the academy. He was also one of the great warriors that helped lead the battle against the Phyrexians, and died during the war.
I want to take this book down and see if I can find another either the same library or another one, and see if they can point me if there's any other books containing information on these shadow people.
What, the Soltari? Huh.
Yes.
That's an odd subject. I could try to look into it for you, but I don't know if we have any books directly on it. Give me some time. If you're looking for a specific book on them and can't find it yourself, you can go to the desk at the front and ask for assistance. Over the evening, some of the night librarians can actually come in and see if they can find books for you and reserve them, if you have chance to come back tomorrow. I know your kind is often quite busy, but since you have permission to be here...
We are here in town for some time.
Oh,
that shouldn't be a problem.
Well then, yes, I would recommend checking with them.
Thank you very much. So then I'll swim down to the main librarian that
was behind the desk. Yeah. Well, you'll swim through the building to that person, and you can ask, and they'll look into finding a book on the Soltari for you.
Thank you.
We'll see what we can find.
Greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for your help. I'll rejoin them and also ask Tulula, would you be free tomorrow to come back?
Yes, I'd be free.
The head librarian is going to see if they can find any books for us and reserve them for tomorrow.
All right then.
Subject. Maybe we should see what our companions are up to, since at this point we have reached a dead end for today.
Okay. Carrion's just been checking out books. Kazarin's found his basics on Phyrexian history.
Well, I'm sure Carrion is probably like not paying attention to the world.
No.
I'll ask Kaz how his things are going.
Things are pretty good. I found some information about the Phyrexians and their history and, Rath and all that. Not exactly what I was looking for, but useful still.
We found some information about the old Weatherlight crew, and apparently they had ran into a race of shadow people called the Soltari.
That's useful information.
Yes, I had the head librarian. Apparently they will, if you ask them to do some basic research, if they have books on certain topics, they will have their overnight librarians reserve books for you.
That's good to know. I think I looked through the whole Phyrexian shelf for the most, right? Kazan had kind of gone through the whole Phyrexian shelf.
Mm-hmm. Well, you went through most of it.
Yeah.
It's just that you couldn't find anything else. You were also trying to skim books, so you never know what you might have accidentally missed too, because there was a lot of them.
I might ask a librarian to look into something, but I wouldn't be surprised if what I'm looking for isn't here. It's kind of more specific knowledge. Probably at the Lion Academy, but
we plan to come back tomorrow to see if they were able to find any more books on the Soltari.
Great.
So hopefully this might give us some idea of who attacked us.
Sure, yes. No, I can see that.
And I think Carrie is in a trance right now.
Mm-hmm. So, Kazrin, are you seeing if a book could be provided for you? Or books or something?
Yeah, I think just on, Phyrexian innovations rather than just their history.
Okay.
Because I'll either find out about the Predator or more about Flowstone, which will help me in my own pursuit.
All right. So you'll all head home for the day, kind of rest up, relax, and prepare yourselves to come back the next day. Carrie and I'm assuming resume her entire research. Now the thing about Phyrexian innovation is it's unfortunately an incredibly broad topic. You will be provided a number of books, Kazrin, which please give me an investigation check on them. So have you do that right now.
Investigation. No.
I'm sure Carrie...
The thing about Phyrexian innovation is also has a very dark path with it. it seems that they have some kind of almost form of like necromancy, except in a direction that is quite different than your average necromancer. They seem to have this idea of completing organics. That's what they call it.
Oh
To make
god,
something...
it's Borg.
They kind of are the Borg. They're fantasy Borg.
Borg.
Yeah, from Star Trek.
Except it's kind of a little worse because they also make like flesh abominations. So they make things like horrors and like biological weapons. Plagues.
Kind of a Borg mixed with what was that one race from the Voyager who had to keep replacing their organs?
The Vidians.
Vidians,
and a couple other things. Because I mean, like, totally, if there was a xenomorph in Magic, they would have invented it.
Yeah.
Man, this is some nerd ass shit, huh?
I'll give you that. We're doing some.
I'm one of their inventions.
Yeah.
You are technically a Phyrexian scientist was behind you. Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
Want to study me?
Inside of you.
And is inside of me,
Oh no.
and not in a pleasant way.
Well,
Other terms for Phyrexia are the Nine Hells and Machine Hell. Because Phyrexia had 9 layers.
I just see the Phyrexians inventing the cube for those horror movies. The cube.
Yeah.
The power cube?
Yeah. There was 9 spheres of Phyrexia. So yeah. One of the things that they definitely were invented, which is known for dangers, was glistening oil.
that sounds like fun.
Yeah. After the apocalypse, there were many that were tainted by it. You could see the ichor tainting their eyes.
Funky. That's dangerous.
The thing about it is the glistening oil that exists in Dominaria is dead. That seems to be effect of the destruction of Phyrexia, and the act that did it that destroyed Yawgmoth destroyed most of the samples of it. There is one known preserved sample of glistening oil, and it's said to be locked within Tolaria West.
Cool. More useful information.
The glistening oil seemed to be one of the connections to their way of doing things. They use the oil as an initial infection point. Think of that as like the nano machines of the Borg. That's what the glistening oil was.
Nanomachines.
Nanites.
Yeah, that's what the Borg in Star Trek did to people. They injected nanomachines in you and started converting you into a cyborg that was hive-minded with the rest of them, so then you continue to do the same to others.
I just have to say this because it's one of my favorite quotes. The Borg sounds Swedish.
Phyrexian oil itself is a contagion. And many Phyrexian machines used it. It's one of the reasons that Urborg is as tainted as it is nowadays. Because a lot of oil spilled there at the end of the war. Granted, it's not the only thing that they did. They had warships, contagions, plagues, many different types of light forms that they developed, all kinds of undead mechanical constructs, biological horrors that they developed, oftentimes combining machine and biologics.
Yikes.
Specific biomechanical plague engines called carriers that they unleashed on various populations. Unfortunately, most of the technology here is only talked about and not discussed how it works.
Sure, understandable. They don't want to, have like an anarchist cookbook in this library.
No. Probably no one really has those, mostly. There are probably very few materials out there that would have actual details on how some of these things would work.
Fair, yeah.
And you're
That
guessing,
makes
probably Tolaria is the only people that might have that because they have history with them.
Sounds like we just need to go to main Tolaria.
Yeah. And it seems as though, like, Phyrexia itself, everything was about the worship of Yawgmoth and being in Yawgmoth's name. Yawgmoth himself transformed himself from a living biological material into a living cloud of particles that contact with living things caused them to die. He turned himself into the ultimate plague.
Yikes.
Ouch.
Most of the deaths and the end of the apocalypse were caused by him.
All right, then. That is... All right.
If it not for the actions of the Weatherlight and the use of the Null Moon, it would have been the end of it all.
Yeah.
Which is a weird
Gruesome.
thing because one of your moons shot a gigantic beam of energy redirected by the Weatherlight into a giant death cloud and destroyed it.
Sounds rad as hell.
It was rad as hell, but your moon shot energy.
It's not a moon.
It actually isn't. The Null Moon's fake.
It's a
We should go
space
there.
station.
We should go to the...
The Null Moon is actually meant to just constantly gather white mana.
We should go to the moon.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure you
Maybe.
could build us a rocket, right?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna rebuild the Predator, which is a sky ship.
Mm-hmm.
I could just put some glass on that bad boy and call it a spaceship.
Or a dome of force.
Or just a bunch of Autoluke's Resilient Spheres. Just a bunch of them. It wouldn't matter for me, because by that point I'll have replaced my lungs.
You
Lungs
keep
are
alluding to
overrated.
that.
It's an actual thing that artificers can do eventually. It allows them to even breathe in vacuums.
But
Wow.
but there's a problem. There's still space radiation.
Nah. It'll be fine.
You turn into the goblin thing.
I'll be fine.
I become Mr. Fantastic.
Well, based on my reputation, it'd be more like the Human Torch with all the fire and everything.
Yeah, true. Fine. Bone Boy becomes the thing.
That tracks a little bit.
Yep.
But there's 5 of us and only 4 powers.
No, Doctor Doom.
Someone becomes Doctor Doom.
Mm-hmm.
Carrie.
No, Kaz would be the one to become Doctor Doom. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
And Carrie literally can become invisible.
Yeah, you're the Invisible Woman.
But you're also fiery.
But anyway, so yeah, that's what you kind of pick up about Phyrexia. It details a lot of like the various types of kind of war machines and stuff. Then you get into, stuff that you're ignoring, but that seems to be their technology is a lot about this. All of it seems to be based on Thran tech, which is like a lot of the ancient artifacts that are dug up and used nowadays. Like Power Stones came from Thran originally too.
Okay.
It seems as though, like, in researching this, I'll give you one thing. You will discover that the origins of the oil seem to be related to attempt to cure what nowadays, especially for an artificer like yourself, you'd know about, is Power Stone poisoning. Power Stones have have a radiation effect. In order to cure that, Yawgmoth developed glistening oil.
To turn people into machines which are resistant to radiation.
Mm-hmm. His first
Cool.
completions were to cure Power Stone radiation poisoning, which he also knew about. And just ignored. It was an excuse to make people into his servants. Cough, cough. He was really evil.
Glad he's dead and definitely not coming back or anything.
I mean, it's confirmed he's dead.
Glad he's totally dead forever.
Uh-huh. Anyway, So, the rest of you, you were looking into the book that was given to you on the Soltari. Let me tell you what it is. The book itself is one that you will find is in the chamber, in the basement chamber. So you will be escorted down there, of course. In through this kind of strange actual bubble. It seems almost like a bubble of air under the skin. So you're actually popping down through a bubble into it. Which is kind of weird, because you're not sure how it, like, doesn't necessarily break, this bubble of air. The room has a kind of weird, kind of stale, kind of, like, strange smell to it.
Of old books.
No, not of old books. You're in, like, a bubble in the skin of a monster.
Ugh.
Yum.
Don't like that description.
It's really what you are, and like, once you kind of burst into the bubble, it is actually like a normal library almost. There's a spiral staircase that you kind of hop down into once you exit, kind of go through the bubble. And then it goes down into rows of shelves with actual tables and stuff set up. The chairs that are set up here are definitely for merfolk and not for surface dwellers. Though they have a couple of chairs that are probably made for more for surface dwellers that they kind of keep a little dusty and inside, in case, like, you know, because they do get visitors from Tolaria and stuff, that they can pull out for you. The book here seems to be one that was written from someone from Old Tolaria, in between the time, soon after the apocalypse. But it seems to be a bit of information that was gathered from during that time. Someone that was from Tolaria that survived the apocalypse. It describes 3 shadow races of Wrath. It details that, like, it goes into a little bit of history. That Wrath existed with having races there, as they were taken from other places. The existence of Wrath proves that either they were able to grab from time or from other dimensions. Stories from those of the Weatherlight crew hints that there are other dimensions, like them traveling to, or other planes, like them traveling to Wrath, them traveling to Mercadia, and the fact that there are portals that exist. There's supposed to be an ancient portal in one part of the world, and in Bogarden and Shiv are said to be portals to a plane of fire.
Fire and Shiv? Nah.
Yeah. So all this leads to the conclusion that, yes, most likely, many of these races were taken from Dominaria, others from other planes. Giving the core as an example. It is said that there were 3 races that were taken together. The Soltari, the Dothi, and the Thakalos. The Soltari and Dothi were in an eternal war that they'd fought for many centuries. The Thakalos were originally a neutral party within the same region, there's some suspect of which kind of regions they're from. It's almost assumed that some of the regions that there are very few civilizations on Dominaria, perhaps one of these is where these races originally came from.
Could you put in the chat the spellings of those names?
Sure.
Doris?
I will throw these in the chat. Soltari. Dothi. Oh, sorry, I misspelled that. I did a S. That's it. Dothi. Thalikos. I keep doing it wrong, but I keep forgetting not to check it. Thalikos. Every time I correct myself, I forget to correct myself again.
Thank you.
Yeah. They were taken together, but something went wrong, and they found themselves in the barrier between Wrath and the rest of all of creation, stuck in the shadows. It mentions how it describes how the Dothi and Thalikos went mad and descended into what they knew best. The Dothi, as a violent race that had originally caused the war, became more violent and deadly. The Thalikos, in their kind of like their own strange way of doing things, kind of descended more into their own madness. They were they were. You have to think of Dalthi as madness that is violent, almost psychosis. The Thalicos were just mad. They didn't have that violent streak behind them. They'd originally been a people of reason, and it seemed like that reason was twisted. The Soltari did not lose their sanity. The religion that they had kept them at peace, and their strong oral traditions. The Soltari and all these other races could communicate with each other or with themselves only. They could not communicate with the rest of the world, still in ways they could influence it sometimes. Using enough power. Effectively, some of them learned ways to step back into the real world for short periods of time, eventually. The best ones that did this was the Soltari. And the story goes that the Soltari eventually used this ability to communicate with the people of the Weatherlight once they became trapped on Rath. Their ultimate fate was to go through the portal and to find a solace as the Grand Wizard Urza, who has been the one who has developed magic to travel between the planes, was the one that invented the Weatherlight's original planar engine, which was used to get to Rath. Though damaged, was able to use the magic himself to try to assist the Weatherlight when they escaped through the portal that was there, and was also able to save the Soltari. It is unknown where he led them to, whether he brought them back to Dominaria, somewhere that they haven't been seen, or they go by another tribe name now, perhaps an ancient tribe name, or if, for whatever reason, similar to how the Weatherlight couldn't go back to Dominaria directly, had to go to Mercadia. Maybe they had to go somewhere else too. And he led them there, and then used his powerful magics to return home. Out of game, he was a planeswalker and could only do shit like that. It's just, like, people that talk about, like, the Weatherlight's ability to travel to, like, Wrath and stuff, they're like, it was a powerful magic spell that only few could do.
Yeah. Planewalker.
Yeah. Most planes don't actually know about other planes. Dominaria is one of the few that does, in certain regions, just because of things like the portal in frickin' like Bogarden to, if I can remember the name. Oh god. A wildfire. He's actually a plane known as Wildfire. So, I mean, there are total connections with Wildfire in multiple places, and, you know, Wildfire is generally like, it's the elemental plane of fire. Kind of think of it as.
That's where fire elementals hang out.
I mean, there are fire elementals in Magic, but that's besides the point. But other things exist there, like, you know, Djinns, Ifrits, and Goblins.
Yep.
Other red mana things.
Minotaurs.
No. No Minotaurs. They would burn too much.
There are red Minotaurs.
I know, they are red mana. It's just Goblins are normally used to burning.
Minotaurs have fur. They would really burn.
Yeah. Anyway, so the ultimate fate of the Soltari is unknown. But they did escape from Wrath. After the integration of Wrath with Dominaria, many peoples and races showed up. Unfortunately, there are a couple like the Dalthi and the Thalicos, which there is no sign of what happened to them. The person who wrote this suspects that perhaps when the boundaries disappeared, so did the races that were trapped there. There were, of course, other races that were on Wrath, which did not show up in Dominaria. Their ultimate fate is unknown either. Perhaps the same borders that once existed, like, the way the person described it is maybe what happened to those is something a little bit more deadly. Since Wrath and Dominaria were meant to be connected, the shadows in between them there were weak enough that those that got trapped there were able to live. The person who wrote this also suspects that those same like boundaries probably exist between Dominaria and other planes, but since naturally they're they're normal and it's much harder to pierce these things, you couldn't get integrations between planes in any other situation. Most likely, those shadows are more vast and more extensive, and probably some from Rath got trapped there. And he doubts that they would make an appearance on this plane if ever they could, because that is so much more vast.
Right.
And that's kind of where it ends.
Okay. Well, if we get to the academy, I'm definitely going to look more up on the Sultari.
And you might want to look into their others, because...
Yeah, the Dothi and Thalicos.
They could have survived. Maybe.
Yeah. But considering both of them were mad, this guy didn't come off as mad?
The thing is, the Dothi, think of them as sociopaths.
Right.
Serial killers, almost. Like,
so he
Shadow
could have
Form.
been that, yeah.
They could have been that. They were mad, but they weren't necessarily stupid.
Right.
The Thalicos were a little bit more...
They weren't Malkavians.
Yeah. The Thalicos were probably a little closer to the madness you're thinking about, just because they were very smart and then went crazy kind of thing. They were too smart when they went crazy.
They became Joker.
Maybe a little bit like that. It's also like, I will tell you, like, it's the Dothi were black mana and the Thalicos were blue mana. So they were up about, like, illusions, trickery, deceptive, dealing with, like, mentally messing with people and stuff like that, It was a lot of mind stuff.
Okay.
Yep, so.
Well, that was my whole purpose of wanting to do the library, so I learned what I could.
Anybody else want to look into anything else, then?
Maybe, are there any books on merchantry?
Probably.
Can I look for those? See if I could...
Bardic compositions.
That too. Maybe some Songs of the Deep that I could learn?
Sure.
Romance novels.
Romance.
It's a library. They might have it.
There's one specifically about a skeleton called Romancing the Bone.
Nah, that's not my style.
Wow.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
I don't know where to go with that one. That was just such
I'm horrible. I'm not going to go any further.
Mm-hmm.
So any songs?
Horrible joke.
Sure. You can look into those. Also, if you don't get that joke, then you do not know 80s movie and you do not know Romancing the Stone, so go watch that at point in time. It is a romantic comedy. I put it like in a pretty good 80s movie. Pretty good. Not the best, but pretty good. It would be worth your while. Anyway, there's my movie selection for the day. Let's take a break. Let's take our other break. We're going to go a little earlier, but that way we'll have most of a full hour for the last part of it here, as you've done most of the research you want, unless some of you come up with anything else to research for the next couple of days. We'll kind of skip ahead with Carrie taking as much time as she can, as long as Latula can take her there, before you get some determinations and spells cast on you, and maybe head to a college. Technically an academy, but we'll call it. Yeah. Anyway, so drink, snack, bathroom break. If you need to take care of any of that, go and do it, and we're back in a little bit. See you in a second, folks.